G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle. Interesting video for you today. So, I put a post up early, well it would have been yesterday, on our Facebook page. And the post was just a screenshot of something that a person was selling. It was a Be'lakor model, and they were selling it for about 45% lower than retail. That's what they ended up selling it for. It was unpainted. It was mostly assembled, but several parts were not attached to it yet, like the wings, in order to make it easier to paint. And in part, I lamented the fact in the first paragraph that the miniature was... people had added intrinsic value to it. They'd partly assembled it. They'd done a lot of the hard yards, okay, as it were, for people. And instead of the value going up because of this, because someone has put the labour into building the model, the value of the model went down, which it kind of sucks. And I know this pain. And then I went on the next paragraph to say, look, people often sell things due to financial hardship or whatever that, maybe they shouldn't have put themselves in that situation in the first place or whatever. And that got taken pretty badly by a few people, which I kind of feel bad about it. I don't have a huge amount of empathy sometimes, but people are taking the wrong message. The message that I want to share originally was, if you don't need it, and this is what I said, if you don't need it, don't buy it. And Kat raised the point with me in private conversation afterwards that everyone's need is different. And he's right, and I think that bears some talking about. And so today, that's what I want to do. I want to break it down a little bit, because what do you need? Well, if you want to live, you need air, you need water, you need food, but you probably don't need Warhammer. And so saying, does someone need to buy this? Well, the answer technically is always no, they don't need it. They will not die if they don't have Warhammer. So when I say need, what I really mean is it a part of your hobby goal? So I think in order to understand this, you need to look at hobby goals in general. So build, paint, play is the classic sort of trinity of what Warhammer is. Okay, it's what I often refer to is you buy the models, you build them, you paint them, you put them on the tabletop, and that's ideally the way you go about it. That's not what everyone wants. Some people want to just collect. They just want to buy the models. And then they don't want to actually play with them. They might paint them, they might build them, but buying is sometimes what they're into. And if that's their goal, I guess success. For other people, and what I think it most often is they get hyped up. And I've spoken about it on many videos. The hype with Games Workshop is huge. They are a monster at marketing hype, at marketing spin, because they work up their community really effectively. And what's interesting about it is they manage to get their community to all hype it up to one another. And so people will turn around to each other and really talk about the new releases, especially inside gaming stores. Everyone has been in that situation if you've been in the hobby for a little bit, where you're standing around, you're looking at the newest White Dwarf coming out, and it's previewing a bunch of new miniatures that are going to come out soon, and it's, wow, these look fantastic, how cool are these? I've never, had an army of, let's say, Sisters of Battle. I've never owned a Sister Battle army. Oh, I can't wait to have it. And they hype one another up, and neither of these people had any intention that morning of buying a Sisters of Battle army. And I've often seen this where, this is first-hand experience, but it doesn't make it the rule, but please take it at face value. I've seen it before where people haven't even completed any armies. Okay, they're on their 5th or 6th army, none of them are completed. 1 or 2 of them are barely to a tabletop sort of standard. And I'm not trying to insult people here, I'm not trying to put them down, but this is the nature of things. Instead of focusing on a project, it's almost like a procrastination. They start on a project and they start with these fantastic intentions. They're like, I'm going to buy this army, I'm going to paint it, and I'm going to play games with it. And their enthusiasm starts at, level 10. All the enthusiasm in the world. and they go out and they buy all the new releases day one, and it's made worse because of the FOMO, the fear of missing out, because Games Workshop releases are so sketchy at the moment. It can be so hard to get a hold of if it's a high-profile item like the Indomitus box set, or the Sisters of Battle box set that came out, or the Dark Eldar box set that came out with, I think it was with Sisters of Battle as well. Those sets were such high-demand items, and so many scalpers bought them up. They do the same with the novel series. The Siege of Terra series has been often sold. The collector's editions are all sold out before people can get online, it seems. So people go out and they got these intentions, and they go, I'm going to buy this army, and they think the most effective way to buy it, because of the way that Games Workshop has loss leaders, they have these big box sets where you get a lot of extra stuff for cheaper. Well, it's the best choice. So people go out and they buy all this stuff. They buy all these miniatures. And they get it home that day. They've got all this enthusiasm. They start pulling models out. They assemble the first squad. No worries. They start to assemble the second squad. Fatigue's starting to set in. So they go and they try and assemble something else, like a character or a vehicle. But by the end of the day, the enthusiasm they start out with has dropped dramatically off. They go, I'll come back to it tomorrow and I'll get more done. But they don't. And you'll see them at the Games Workshop store, eventually they'll get it onto the table, but it's not painted, it's all grey, it's still in undercoat, they haven't based anything, and they play a few games with it, and then the next release comes along, and they repeat that same cycle. And maybe they hang on to it, maybe it collects dust in a cabinet, or maybe, and what's more depressing, maybe they sell it. And not only have they sunk all this time and effort and work into it, they sell it for less than it's worth. They might have paid $300 for this army set, and they sell it for like $150, which was kind of what I was lamenting with that Be'lakor model that I saw today, that they go out and they've made a terrible, terrible decision here. The goal of their hobby was I want to buy that army, I want to build that army, I want to paint it, and I want to play it. And they barely got as far as building it. And did they get the fulfillment they wanted out of it? I'd say no, because they probably have proved that building it wasn't what they were in it for. They didn't enjoy that process because they didn't get very far with that process. Or they got through the building, but they didn't get through the painting because they didn't enjoy that process. Therefore, it's sort of fallen down in the goals that you were trying to achieve with what you purchased. If you find that it's too much of a chore for you to want to do it, then there's something wrong with the hobby. A hobby is meant to be something you enjoy. It's escapism. It takes you out of what you do in your everyday life, and it gives you something to relax and fill your time in. If you're not finding it relaxing, then there's something wrong. It's not a hobby. It's now a chore. And that sucks. And you're not fulfilling your hobby goals. And then this ties in hand with another problem, which I've also spoken about previously, usually in my live streams, and that is people put themselves in these situations of financial stress, financial hardship, and financial hardship leads to mental hardship. Okay? The two go hand in hand. People who are broke and can't pay bills are generally not the happiest of people and often have to find escapism from their bad situation. This is a problem because things like drugs, alcohol, and anything that can give you a dopamine hit, it could be gambling, could be the pokies, go to a casino, play some cards. It could be playing online video games. It could be buying Warhammer. Okay, anything that can give you a dopamine hit, anything that can make you feel better is what people will gravitate towards, even if it's like a momentary fleeting sensation like junk food. Junk food's a great example. We know it's bad for us, and yet we eat it. It's shit. It's bad for our bodies, but it's fast, and it tastes great when you're eating it, and you feel miserable afterwards. So why do you do it to yourself? Because you get these signals from your brain to the rest of your body that says, yeah, this is pretty good. And it's not a great place to be in. And it's one thing, okay, and this is, I think, where people misinterpret the original post I made, is one thing to go out there and to purchase models that you've saved up for and you have every intention of playing them. And then something unforeseen, dramatic happens and you have no choice but to get rid of a whole bunch of models in order to try and recoup some money and pay your way out of your problems. I get it. That happens, okay? I'm not trying to pick on people for being in that situation. What I want to do is raise awareness for getting into that situation in the first place. And it really applies to the people who make bad decisions. Now, there's a distinction to be made between good and bad financial decisions. Now, I've been pretty lucky in life. I've had a good education. I worked my ass off. I have a great career. I've been very lucky in my working life and have picked up qualifications that have seen me through a lot of problems. My wife is very similar in that regard to myself. She's got a great education, a great job, which she's brilliant at. She's a school teacher, and I'm an engineer. And so together we're well off financially, but we still have hard times too. When you have to buy a house, when you have to replace things, it happens. It's not about shaming people who have bad incomes. It's about pointing out that people are making decisions which are bad for themselves. And case in point, Kat and I have both seen people who have the choice pay their rent or buy Warhammer, and they pick buying Warhammer over the rent. That's a major problem, because you're now jeopardizing your housing. You're jeopardizing your home, your shelter, your protection, the place where you store your Warhammer. You're sacrificing that potentially in order to satisfy a whim, an urge, a desire. Not a great idea, okay? That, to me, is a classic bad financial decision. Now, it's one thing to say, I've got $5,000 in the bank. I feel pretty confident in buying, an Age of Sigmar Dominion bundle. That's not going to break the bank. I'm going to have plenty left over for a rainy day. And then all of a sudden you get a $6,000 bill. Wow, it could be car breaks down, roof falls in your house, who knows what, right? These things happen. If that does happen, yeah, that sucks. You pretty much had no control over that. I don't want to shame people for doing that. The point here is, though, you need to assess your situation, because that momentary satisfaction of purchasing is not going to offset the other difficulties you may have put yourself into. And you need to seriously consider your purchases. And so this is why I often say my rule of thumb is, if you're going to go out and you're going to purchase something, sit on it. Especially if it's a spur of the moment thing, like you walk into your hobby shop and on that day you're like, man, I just want to buy something because I'm getting all these great hobby ideas. I could start a new army. I could wait a week. Don't buy anything that day. Go home, sit on it. And if you still got that same enthusiasm in a week's time, maybe that project is for you. But don't just go out and buy that $300 starting box. Go out, go home. Leave your home, go out. And buy something small, something simple. Maybe a HQ unit or a Kill Team squad. Something like that for the faction you have in mind. Find a unit that you're really passionate about in that army and work on that. And if you've still got that same passion and drive at the end of doing that part of the project, maybe buy something else. And then after 2 or 3 little things, then maybe look at purchasing the rest of the army and then working around that. People are afraid to do a slow grow anymore. When I got into this hobby, I had no choice as a poor ass teenager, because when I was a little kid, yeah, my parents would buy me the occasional models, 2nd edition, but I really didn't get to play a lot of 2nd edition. Didn't have money of my own. By the time 3rd edition came along, though, I did. And it wasn't like I could go out and buy a Space Marine Battle Force. I literally built my first army with blister packs. I just saved up money out of my school lunches, go hungry every now and then. You couldn't tell it now because I'm fat, but, I'd go without. $14 here and there for a blister pack of scouts. 3 scouts one week, 3 scouts the next week. Hey, I've got 6 scouts. It's a legal unit now. $19 for a 5-man tactical squad. Yep, cool. That's it. That's now 2 troops choices and $12 for my first chaplain. Cool. That's a legal army. Is it a huge army? No. Is it a great army? No. But it was a fun army, and it got my foot in the door. And that was a better way for me to get into the hobby than for me to go out on my first army and buy $300 worth of Space Marines. And that's the way maybe people need to look at it. So, you know, you could go out today. You could buy what's on screen now, the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Dominion. Because you go, oh man, those orc models are so cool in it. I can't wait to build and paint an orc army. You get it home, and then you find out you don't like painting green. Well, you know, mistakes were just made, weren't they? Don't do it out of hype. Don't do it out of FOMO. And that's the thing with FOMO. Like, Games Workshop knows what they're doing with it. They want to sell these things out on day one. So they deliberately make very few of these bundles, and they put us into a situation where they're sort of trying to force your hand. Don't play into it. Especially if you know a release for a faction is coming up. This is some, I think, pretty helpful advice here. Is I'm not going to say don't buy the models the day they come out, necessarily. In the past, I think I have said that, but often with a range, like, say, Stormcast Eternals or the Uruks, you know, the Orcs, there are other models which are pretty damn similar to them that are already out. Go and buy a couple of those to get a taste for it prior to the big box releasing, because you know you get a month's preview before these things drop. So that gives you a month to get some money together and to get some test miniatures. And if you find within that month leading up to it that actually, no, I don't like painting Stormcast Eternals, then why would you go out and buy this big box, even if it is a bit of FOMO? You're just shooting yourself in the foot. So at the end of the day, you need to assess your hobby goals. That's the whole point of this video. What are your hobby goals? If you intend to build, paint, and play an army, you do not want it to be a chore. You need to enjoy it. Therefore, you need to think wisely about your purchases. And you need to buy things which enable you to complete that goal. And if you stray from the path of completing that goal, then that is not a wise idea, because straying from the path might mean that you lose some of your creative efforts by wasting energy in the wrong direction. Kind of a weird sentence. There is nothing wrong with taking a break from a project to paint something else. Like, you know, if you've been painting Power Armor for a long time like I have, it's nice to pick up a Warhammer Fantasy miniature and paint that, because you get to use a range of different colours, paint some flesh and some fur and things like that you don't get a lot of on Power Armor. Great, fantastic. But I don't go, oh, I want to break from painting Space Marines and then go out and buy, 2,000 points of Lizardmen. It's, it's insanity. Especially if you don't know if you're going to enjoy painting the 2,000 points of Lizardmen. And on top of that, don't impulse buy wherever possible. Like, I can't state this enough, and I've said it in probably 5 videos now. Wait a week, guys. Wait a week on it, and see if you've still got that drive, that desire to get something, okay? Because if you go out and impulse buy, chances are you didn't want it in the first place if you only decided to get it that day. You know? And we do this with lots of things. Ever been there surfing on eBay and bought a bunch of crap you didn't need? I know I have. I usually find something to do with it, but doesn't mean it was always the brightest idea. And I think this happens to a lot of people. So think it through. On top of that point, don't make bad financial decisions, not just in the regard of buying things you don't necessarily need in relation to your hobby goals, but bad financial decisions where you're going to affect another part of your life negatively with your decision to purchase. Can't state it enough. Mental health is so important, guys. And if you do have mental issues, there is nothing wrong. There is no shame in talking to people about it. Because repressing it because of some, social norm that you think you're breaking, there is no societal rules that say you're not allowed to talk to people when you need help. There are a whole bunch of rules in life. Rules are made by men, and men are fallible. There are laws about all sorts of things, but there is no law that says you can't ask someone for help. Look after yourself, look after your well-being. And yeah, I get it. Sometimes bad things happen, they're outside of your control. You did everything right when it came to purchasing an army, and yet something happens and you got to sell it off. That sucks balls. I'm not trying to shame people for that. That is an outside-the-box situation. It's not what I'm trying to refer to in my Facebook post or here today. I originally wasn't going to make a video at all, but then, people kept inferring on that post that, hey, I was doing this for the clicks. I don't think there's any clicks to really be gained from this. I don't think it's a controversial subject, and especially with the heading of the video, I don't necessarily think it's a major pull for views. If I wanted clicks, or I wanted some sort of clickbait, it doesn't take much on YouTube. All you need to do is put up some sort of post that could be seen as controversial in some way. Noise Marines transgender. Okay? Man, you're going to open a kettle of worms with that one, depending how you aim the video and how edgy you want to be. Okay? That's how you generate click and clickbait. That's not what I'm here for. The whole point of this video is to tell you, figure out your hobby goals. Are you just collecting? Okay, cool. A lot of what I've said probably won't apply to you because you have a different goal. But if you want to build, paint, play, you need to aim for that goal and you need to stick rigidly to that road. Trust me. It's not for everyone. Sometimes people just find that they can't do it. They can't paint or whatever because maybe they're not bad at it, but they just find it too much of a boring process. They find it a chore. In which case, hey, there's things like commission painting services. There are people out there, in fact, there are services who will build your models for you if that's the part you don't like. That's a thing. So what you do with your models is really up to you. But you need to be smart about how you do it, and you need to have some forethought about what you're trying to achieve. Anyway, I'm back with the Outer Circle. Let me know what you think, guys. Take care. See you on the next one.